Welcome everyone to Audio Romance AR. Go ahead and get cozy, put on your headphones, and prepare your heart and mind. Today's emotional drama story is about to start. The front door slammed so hard the walls shook. I stood frozen in the middle of our dimly lit living room, clutching my 2-year-old son Liam tightly against my chest as he wailed in fear. My husband, Marcus Voss, stormed in reeking of whiskey and expensive women's perfume. His eyes were wild with alcohol and disgust as he hurled his briefcase across the room. "Look at yourself, Elena," he roared, his voice echoing through the thin apartment walls for the whole neighborhood to hear. "After carrying my child, what the hell have you become? Your belly is loose and disgusting, stretch marks everywhere like some kind of freak show, and your hair, God, you look like a tired, broken housewife. I'm ashamed to even be seen with you." My heart cracked open. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I forced them back, rocking Liam gently while trying to keep my voice steady. "Marcus, you're drunk again. I only took the night shift because we're behind on rent. Liam kept asking for you all day." "Night shift?" He let out a cruel laugh, stepping so close I could smell the lipstick on his collar. "Or were you out whoring around? Stop acting innocent, Elena. I'm done with you. I'm sick of coming home to this pathetic version of a wife. At least Sophia is young, hot, and knows how to please a man. She doesn't cry and complain like you do every single night." Each word sliced deeper than the last. I looked down at my body, the deep purple stretch marks that refused to fade across my stomach, the exhaustion carved into my face after endless sleepless nights. I used to be the woman he called beautiful. Now I was nothing but an embarrassment in his eyes. Liam's cries grew louder. I held him closer, my arms trembling. "Please, Marcus, not in front of our son. We can talk tomorrow when you're sober." "Talk?" he sneered, ripping Liam from my arms and dropping him roughly into the crib. "There's nothing left to talk about. I've been sleeping with Sophia for months. She's everything you're not. Beautiful, tight-bodied, and exciting. If you want a divorce, go ahead, but you'll get nothing. No money, no house, and definitely not my son. You don't deserve to be his mother anymore." I collapsed to my knees the moment he slammed the door behind him. The silence that followed was suffocating. I crawled to the crib, pulled my sobbing son into my arms, and finally broke down. Hot tears streamed down my face as I held Liam close, his tiny fists gripping my shirt like he was afraid I would disappear too. Later that night, after Marcus had passed out drunk on the sofa, I locked myself in the bathroom and stared at the stranger in the mirror. The woman looking back at me had dull eyes, pale skin, and a body forever changed by pregnancy. My hands traced the stretch marks on my stomach as fresh tears fell. How did I let myself become someone he could throw away so easily? I whispered, voice breaking. The pain was overwhelming, but deep beneath the heartbreak, a small, dangerous spark ignited. Pure rage mixed with quiet determination. I couldn't keep living like this. Not for myself, and especially not for my son. The next morning, the apartment felt colder than usual. Marcus left early without a word, not even glancing at Liam or me. I stood by the window, watching his car disappear down the street, my eyes swollen from crying all night. Liam was still sleeping peacefully in his crib, completely unaware that his parents' world was falling apart. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the stretch marks on my stomach again. They seemed darker today, like permanent scars reminding me of everything I had sacrificed. "What am I going to do now?" I whispered to myself. The thought of divorce terrified me. I had no steady job, no savings, and almost no support. My parents were far away in a small town, and I didn't want to burden them. But staying meant enduring more humiliation, more nights of waiting for a husband who no longer loved me, more mornings of smelling another woman's scent on his clothes. That day, I made a quiet decision. I would fight, not just for myself, but for Liam. After dropping him off at the cheap daycare down the street, I went to the local library and started searching for divorce information. The words on the screen blurred through my tears. Adultery, custody, child support. Every line felt like another stab. In the afternoon, I took on an extra cleaning shift at a nearby office building. My body ached from exhaustion, but I kept pushing. While wiping the glass windows on the 12th floor, I caught my reflection. A tired, broken woman stared back. For a moment, I wanted to cry again, but instead, I clenched my jaw. "No more tears, Elena," I told myself silently. You have to become stronger. Weeks turned into months. The divorce battle was brutal. Marcus used every dirty trick. He claimed I was unstable, that I couldn't provide a stable home, and even tried to paint me as the one who neglected Liam. Sophia Laurent, his mistress, appeared in court once, looking flawless in designer clothes, giving me a pitying smile that made my blood boil. During one particularly painful hearing, Marcus stood up and said loudly for everyone to hear, "Look at her. She let herself go completely after having my child. No man would want her now. She's just a sad, used-up mother." The judge warned him, but the damage was done. I sat there, cheeks burning with shame, fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. That night, after putting Liam to bed, I stood in front of the mirror once more. Instead of crying, I made a promise to myself. I will never let anyone make me feel this small again. Slowly, I began to change. I started waking up at 5 a.m. to exercise in our tiny living room while Liam was still asleep. I ate healthier, even if it meant skipping meals sometimes so Liam could have enough. I enrolled in an online accounting course and worked 2 jobs, cleaning during the day and waitressing at night. There were nights I wanted to give up. Nights when Liam cried for his father and I had no answer. Nights when I looked at my still imperfect body and felt worthless. But every time those dark thoughts came, I remembered Marcus's cruel words and used them as fuel. Then, one rainy Thursday evening, everything shifted. I was working at a quiet cafe near the financial district, my apron stained with coffee, hair tied back messily. Liam was with the babysitter. I was exhausted, carrying a tray of drinks when I nearly tripped. A strong hand gently caught my arm to steady me. "Careful there," a deep, calm voice said. I looked up and met the kindest pair of gray eyes I had ever seen. The man was tall, well-dressed in a tailored navy suit, with dark hair and a quiet confidence that made the noisy cafe seem to fade away. "I'm sorry, sir," I mumbled, embarrassed. He smiled softly. "No need to apologize. You look like you've had a long day. Would you like to sit for a moment? I can wait." His name was Julian Harrington. He was a successful logistics executive who had gone through his own painful divorce 2 years earlier. He had a 5-year-old daughter named Sophia, ironically sharing the same name as Marcus's mistress, but nothing else in common. We talked briefly that night. He didn't pity me. He simply listened as I quietly mentioned I was a single mother fighting for custody. His voice was gentle when he said, "Being a parent is the hardest and most beautiful job in the world. You're doing it alone. That takes real strength." For the first time in years, someone saw me as more than just a used-up mother. Julian started coming to the cafe regularly. He never pushed. Sometimes he brought small toys for Liam. Other times he simply sat and talked with me during my short breaks, about life, about healing, about second chances. He told me about his own scars from his failed marriage and how he was learning to be a better father. Little by little, the walls around my heart began to crack. One evening, after a particularly difficult court day where Marcus had once again insulted me, I broke down in the back alley behind the cafe. Julian found me there, crying quietly against the brick wall. Without saying a word, he pulled me into a warm, safe embrace. In his arms, I finally let go of months of suppressed pain. "You don't have to carry this alone anymore, Elena," he whispered against my hair. "Not if you don't want to." That was the moment I realized I was no longer falling. Someone was finally there to catch me. The weeks that followed my breakdown in the alley behind the cafe became a turning point I never expected. Julian Harrington didn't disappear after that night. Instead, he became a quiet, steady presence in my chaotic life. Never demanding, never rushing, but always there. He started picking me up after my night shifts so I wouldn't have to take the late bus home with Liam. Sometimes he brought warm soup or fresh fruit for my son, saying softly, "Liam needs proper nutrition while his mom is working so hard." Other times, he simply sat with me on the old park bench near my apartment, listening as I poured out my frustrations about the never-ending custody battle. Marcus, meanwhile, grew more vicious. He began posting subtle digs on social media. Photos of him and Sophia Laurent at fancy restaurants captioned things like, "Finally living my best life with a real woman." Friends from our old circle started messaging me, some with pity, others with judgment. "Elena, you should really take care of yourself more," one former colleague wrote. "Marcus looks so happy now." Each message felt like salt in an open wound. At night, after putting Liam to bed, I would stand in front of the mirror again, tracing the stretch marks that still marked my body. The difference was, the tears came less frequently. In their place grew a burning resolve. One Saturday afternoon, Julian surprised me with a gym membership and a simple yoga mat. "No pressure," he said with that gentle smile of his. "Just something to help you feel stronger, for yourself and for Liam." I hesitated at first. My body still felt foreign to me, softer, heavier, scarred. But I started going anyway, waking up before dawn while Liam slept. The first few sessions were humiliating. I could barely hold a plank for 10 seconds. My reflection in the gym mirrors showed a woman still carrying the weight of betrayal. Yet every drop of sweat felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Months passed. I finished my online accounting course with honors and landed a better-paying job as a junior accountant at a mid-sized firm. The salary wasn't huge, but it was stable. I cut my night shifts and started spending more evenings with Liam, reading him stories, teaching him simple words, watching his eyes light up when I came home early. My body began to change too. The stretch marks faded to silvery lines, still visible, but no longer something I hid in shame. My arms grew toned from lifting Liam and from the gym. My waist slowly returned. Most importantly, my posture changed. I no longer walked with my shoulders hunched in defeat. I stood taller. Julian noticed everything. He never commented on my appearance directly, but the way his eyes softened when he looked at me told me he saw the transformation, inside and out. Then came the night that changed everything. It was Liam's 3rd birthday. I had saved up for weeks to throw him a small party at the park. Just as I was setting up the balloons, my phone rang. It was Marcus's lawyer informing me that Marcus was pushing for full custody again, claiming I was unstable and financially irresponsible. I hung up, hands shaking. The old pain surged back violently. I turned away from the party setup so Liam wouldn't see me cry. Julian arrived shortly after, carrying a large gift bag. One look at my face and he knew. He pulled me aside under a quiet tree while Liam played with the few children who had shown up. "Elena," he said, his voice low and steady, "you've already won the most important battle. You're becoming the mother Liam deserves. Don't let Marcus steal your peace anymore." Tears slipped down my cheeks despite my efforts to hold them back. "I'm so tired of fighting, Julian. Every time I think I'm moving forward, he drags me back." He gently wiped my tears with his thumb, his touch incredibly tender. "Then let me fight with you. Not as a friend this time, but as someone who wants to be by your side, for as long as you'll allow me." My breath caught. In that moment, under the soft afternoon light filtering through the leaves, I realized I had fallen for Julian Harrington. Not because he was rich or successful, but because he saw me when I was at my lowest and chose to stay. That evening, after the party, Julian helped me put Liam to bed. As we stood in the doorway watching my son sleep peacefully, Julian took my hand. "I know you're still healing," he said quietly. "I won't rush you, but I need you to know I'm falling in love with you, Elena Voss, with the woman who fights every day for her child, with the woman who's learning to love herself again." I looked up at him, heart pounding. For the first time in years, the fear in my chest was replaced by warmth. "I think I'm falling for you too," I whispered. He smiled, that rare, beautiful smile, and pulled me into his arms. It wasn't a passionate kiss yet, just a long, safe embrace that felt like coming home after a terrible storm. But the storm wasn't over. A few weeks later, I received an invitation that would bring my past crashing back into my present. Julian's company was hosting its annual gala, a black tie event where all the major business partners would attend. He asked me to go with him as his date. I hesitated. "Julian, I'm not sure I'm ready for that kind of world yet." He took my hands. "You are more than ready, Elena, and I want the world to see the incredible woman I see every day." So I said yes. I bought a simple but elegant black dress with the money I had saved. On the night of the gala, as I stood in front of the mirror adjusting my hair, now long, healthy, and shining, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Stronger, calmer, beautiful in a way that came from within. Julian's eyes widened when he saw me. "Elena, you look breathtaking." As we walked into the grand ballroom together, hand in hand, I felt nervous but proud. Then I saw them, Marcus and Sophia Laurent. They were standing near the bar. Marcus looked older, more tired. His once confident posture seemed slightly slumped. Sophia, still beautiful, had a noticeable baby bump and was clinging to his arm a little too tightly. The moment Marcus's eyes landed on me, on us, his face drained of color. Elena? He choked out, loud enough for several people nearby to turn their heads. Julian's hand tightened protectively around mine. I lifted my chin, meeting my ex-husband's shocked gaze with calm dignity. "Hello, Marcus," I said, my voice steady and clear. "It's been a while." The grand ballroom seemed to freeze the moment Marcus spoke my name. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over hundreds of elegantly dressed guests, but all eyes suddenly felt like they were on us. Sophia Laurent's hand tightened visibly on Marcus's arm, her perfectly painted lips parting in surprise as she stared at me. "Elena?" Marcus repeated, his voice cracking. He looked me up and down, disbelief written all over his face. The last time he had seen me, I was a exhausted, crying mess in old clothes with stretch marks and messy hair. Tonight, I stood before him in a sleek black evening gown that hugged my now-toned figure, my hair falling in soft waves, and my posture straight with quiet confidence. Julian's warm hand remained steady on the small of my back, a silent show of support. Marcus took a shaky step forward, ignoring the curious glances from nearby guests. "Is that really you? You look completely different. What happened?" I offered a small, composed smile, the kind that didn't reach my eyes. "Life happened, Marcus. I grew up. I moved on." Sophia's eyes narrowed, scanning me with clear jealousy. She placed a protective hand over her swollen belly and forced a tight smile. "Well, isn't this awkward? I didn't expect to see your ex-wife here, darling, especially looking like this." Her words carried a sharp edge, but they no longer had the power to wound me the way they once would have. Julian spoke before I could respond, his voice calm yet commanding. "Mr. Voss, I believe we haven't been properly introduced. I'm Julian Harrington, CEO of Harrington Logistics. Elena is my date tonight and soon to be my fiancée." The word fiancé landed like a thunderclap. Marcus's face turned pale. Sophia looked like she had been slapped. "Fiancé?" Marcus laughed bitterly, but there was no real humor in it, only shock and something darker. "You've got to be kidding me? Elena? My Elena? The same woman who could barely get out of bed after giving birth to my son? Your Elena?" I cut in, my voice cool and steady. "I stopped being yours the day you chose to humiliate me in front of our child and parade your mistress around, the day you told me my body disgusted you, the day you said I was worthless." My words carried across the small circle of people who had gathered to watch the unfolding drama. Marcus flinched. I was angry that night." He stammered, running a hand through his thinning hair. "I didn't mean half the things I said. You know how I get when I drink. Sophia was just a distraction. Things aren't going well between us anymore." Sophia gasped. "Marcus, what are you saying?" He ignored her, stepping closer to me, his eyes desperate. "Elena, please, look at you now. You're beautiful. You've changed so much. We can fix this. For Liam's sake. He needs his real father." I felt Julian tense beside me, but he remained silent, letting me handle this moment I had waited years for. For a second, the old pain rose up, memories of nights I cried myself to sleep, of being called disgusting, of watching Marcus walk out while I begged him to stay for our son. But this time, the pain didn't swallow me. Instead, I felt powerful. "Marcus," I said softly but firmly, "Liam already has everything he needs. He has a mother who fights for him every single day. And soon, he'll have a stepfather who respects and loves both of us. You made your choice the moment you chose Sophia over your family." I turned to Sophia, who was now visibly shaking with anger and embarrassment. "I don't hate you," I told her calmly. "I actually feel sorry for you. Because one day, when your body changes after giving birth, you might understand exactly how it feels to be discarded like I was." Sophia opened her mouth to snap back, but no words came out. Marcus reached out as if to grab my hand, but Julian smoothly stepped between us. "I suggest you keep your distance, Mr. Voss," Julian said, his tone polite yet ice cold. "Elena has moved on. I strongly advise you to do the same and focus on the child you're about to bring into this world." Security quietly approached as the tension grew. Marcus looked utterly broken, his eyes glassy with regret as he stared at me one last time. "Elena, I'm sorry," he whispered hoarsely. "I was a fool. Please, give me another chance." I looked at the man who once made me feel so small and realized I felt nothing but pity. "Goodbye, Marcus," I said softly. Then I turned, took Julian's arm, and walked away with my head held high. The whispers of the guests followed us, but for the first time, they didn't shame me. They celebrated my strength. Later that night, after the gala, Julian drove me home. Liam was already asleep at the babysitter's. We stood outside my apartment door under the soft glow of the street lamp. "You were incredible tonight," Julian said, gently brushing a strand of hair from my face. "I've never been prouder of anyone." I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "I couldn't have done it without you. You gave me the strength to finally close that chapter." He leaned down and kissed me, slow, tender, and full of promise. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "Elena Voss," he whispered, "I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel unworthy again. Will you marry me?" Tears of joy filled my eyes as I nodded. "Yes, Julian. Yes." The word yes had barely left my lips when Julian pulled me closer, wrapping me in his arms as if he never wanted to let go. Under the soft glow of the street lamp, with the city humming quietly around us, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: complete peace. "I promise I'll make you happy, Elena," he whispered against my hair. "You, Liam, and any future children we may have. I'll spend every day proving that you deserve the world." I buried my face in his chest, inhaling his clean, comforting scent. For so long, I had believed I was broken, unworthy, and unlovable. But standing there in Julian's embrace, I finally understood. I had never been the problem. Marcus had simply been too blind and selfish to see my worth. The next few months passed like a beautiful dream mixed with hard work. Our engagement was quiet at first. I didn't want a flashy announcement. Julian respected that. Instead, we focused on building a real family. He started spending more time with Liam, taking him to the park, teaching him how to kick a soccer ball, and reading bedtime stories in that deep, soothing voice of his. Liam, who had been wary of new people, slowly began calling him Juju, a nickname that made both Julian and me smile every time. Meanwhile, the custody battle finally reached its conclusion. The judge ruled in my favor. Marcus was granted supervised visitation only, twice a month. When the verdict was read, Marcus sat motionless in the courtroom, his face pale and defeated. Sophia wasn't even there. Rumors said their relationship was already falling apart under the pressure of her pregnancy and Marcus's growing financial problems. After the hearing, Marcus approached me in the hallway. He looked like a shadow of the arrogant man I once knew. "Elena, can we talk? Just for a minute?" His voice was hoarse, eyes red-rimmed. I nodded, keeping a safe distance. Julian waited a few steps away, giving me space but staying close enough to intervene if needed. "I was wrong," Marcus said, his shoulders slumped. "So incredibly wrong. I let my ego and my selfishness destroy everything. Seeing you tonight at the gala, seeing how happy and beautiful you are, it destroyed me. I miss you. I miss our family. Please, give me one more chance. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll be a better father. Just don't take Liam away from me completely." I looked at the man who had once shattered my heart into pieces. The man who had called me disgusting, worthless, and unlovable. Strangely, I felt no anger anymore, only a deep, quiet sadness for the years I had wasted believing his lies. "Marcus," I said gently but firmly, "I forgave you a long time ago. Not for you, but for me. So I could move forward. Liam will still see you, but under the court's rules. As for us, there is no us anymore. I'm marrying Julian. He's the man who helped me heal when you broke me." Tears slipped down Marcus's cheeks. I lost the best thing I ever had. "You didn't lose me," I replied. "You threw me away, and I'm grateful you did, because it led me to the life I deserve." I walked away without looking back. The wedding took place 3 months later in a beautiful garden overlooking the lake. It was intimate, only close friends, Julian's family, and my parents who had flown in. Liam walked beside me as my little ring bearer, looking adorable in his tiny suit. When I walked down the aisle in a simple white lace dress, Julian's eyes filled with tears. He looked at me like I was the most precious thing in the world. "You are the strongest, most beautiful woman I've ever known," he whispered as we exchanged vows. "Thank you for letting me love you." "I do," I said, my voice clear and full of joy. After we were pronounced husband and wife, Liam ran into our arms. The three of us hugged tightly as guests cheered. In that moment, my broken family had finally become whole again. Not with the man who hurt me, but with the man who healed me. 6 months into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. When I told Julian, he dropped to his knees in the kitchen, pressing his forehead against my still flat stomach, tears streaming down his face. "Our baby," he whispered in awe. "Thank you, Elena. Thank you for giving me this chance to be the father I always wanted to be." Liam was overjoyed at the idea of becoming a big brother. He started talking to my belly every night, telling the baby stories and promising to protect him or her. Life wasn't perfect. There were still hard days. Mornings when old insecurities tried to creep back. Nights when I remembered the pain Marcus had caused. But every time those feelings surfaced, Julian was there to hold me. And every time I looked at Liam's happy face or felt the gentle kicks of our unborn child, I knew I had made it through the darkest chapter of my life. One quiet evening, as we sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Julian took my hand and kissed my knuckles. "Do you ever regret anything?" he asked softly. I smiled, resting my head on his shoulder. "I regret nothing," I whispered, "because every tear, every painful night, every moment I thought I was worthless. It all led me here, to you, to us." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in soft pinks and golds, I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. I was no longer the broken woman Marcus had abandoned. I was Elena Harrington, a wife, a mother, a survivor, and finally, a woman who loved herself again. And this was only the beginning of our beautiful forever. 2 years later, I stood on the wide wooden deck of our lakeside home, watching the golden afternoon sunlight dance across the water. A gentle breeze played with my hair as I cradled my 6-month-old daughter, Isabella, in my arms. She had Julian's gray eyes and my smile, a perfect little miracle. "Mama, look, I caught a butterfly." Liam's excited voice rang out from the garden below. At 5 years old now, he was growing so fast, full of energy and confidence. He ran toward me, holding a small yellow butterfly carefully in his hands before gently releasing it back into the air. I laughed softly. "Well done, sweetheart. But remember, we let them fly free, right?" He nodded proudly, then climbed the steps to join me. "Can I hold Bella?" I carefully transferred Isabella into his arms, watching with a full heart as my son gently rocked his baby sister. The sight never failed to bring tears to my eyes, tears of pure happiness. Julian appeared behind me, wrapping his strong arms around my waist and pressing a kiss to the side of my neck. "How are my 3 favorite people doing?" he murmured, his voice warm and full of love. I leaned back into his chest, feeling completely safe and cherished. "We're perfect." Life had changed so dramatically since that painful night when Marcus had humiliated me in our old apartment. The woman who once cried alone in the bathroom, tracing her stretch marks with shaking fingers, now stood here, confident, loved, and at peace. Marcus had tried to reach out a few more times after the wedding. The last message I received from him was 6 months ago. He said Sophia had left him shortly after their daughter was born. He was struggling financially and emotionally. He begged to see Liam more often and apologized again for everything he had done. I replied only once. "Liam is happy and healthy. He knows he has a father who loves him. When he's older and ready, he can decide how much he wants to see you. Until then, please respect our family's peace." That was the last time I heard from him. I no longer felt anger toward Marcus, only quiet gratitude. Because if he hadn't broken me so completely, I might never have rebuilt myself into the woman I am today. "Mommy, can we have ice cream after dinner?" Liam asked, looking up at me with those big, innocent eyes. I smiled and ruffled his hair. "Only if you finish all your vegetables first." Julian chuckled. "She's strict, isn't she, buddy?" As the sun began to set, painting the sky in beautiful shades of orange and pink, the 4 of us sat together on the deck, our little family. Julian held Isabella while Liam leaned against my side, telling us about his day at kindergarten. I looked at each of them, my heart overflowing. There was a time when I believed I would never be happy again, when every mirror reminded me of my flaws, when every night felt like an endless cycle of pain and self-doubt. But I survived. I rose from the ashes. I found love that healed instead of hurt. And most importantly, I found myself again. Julian noticed me watching them and reached over to take my hand, intertwining our fingers. "What are you thinking about, my love?" he asked softly. I squeezed his hand and smiled, tears of joy glistening in my eyes. I'm thinking about how lucky I am, I whispered. I once thought my story was over, but it turns out that was only the beginning of the most beautiful chapter of my life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I closed my eyes and breathed in the peaceful evening air. I was no longer Elena Voss, the broken, humiliated wife. I was Elena Harrington, a strong mother, a devoted wife, and a woman who had learned that her worth was never determined by anyone else's words. And every single day, I chose to remember. My scars didn't make me ugly. They made me powerful. They told the story of how I rose. The end. And that's the end of our story. Thank you so much for listening and joining us on Audio Romance AR. If you enjoyed today's story, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our latest emotional dramas. See you in the next story. Wishing you a day full of beautiful emotions. Goodbye.